Hello everybody, and welcome back to Path of Exile 2. I am approaching 300 hours of in-game time, and I've been more than 10 times. I don't know how many times I've gone through the campaign because I've deleted several characters, but I have at least 5 characters that have gone through the campaign, and I've re-rolled a couple of them a couple of times, and I've deleted characters that I've went all the way through the campaign with a couple of times because I wasn't happy with the builds and I wanted to change their ascendancies and things like that. So I think it's safe to say I've been through the entire campaign, through the cruel acts and everything, more than 10 times at this point. So I have a lot of experience in that particular arena. I've also completed up to tier 12 maps and found all 3 citadels. They're all just waiting for me to be able to complete them, but I think I need tier 15 maps to be able to do those. I'm not 100% sure on that, but I think that's how that works. I say all of that to say that I have some experience in all of the various aspects of the game, and so I want to kind of go over now that I have more experience since I've done my last review video. I want to talk about my experience now that I've done some extensive mapping, now that I've attempted some more of the Ascendancy related things and all that kind of stuff. I really want to talk about those things because the only way that this game gets better is if we talk about the things that we have concerns with. It's all great and well to sing the game's praises and all that stuff. There's a lot about this game I like. Clearly, I've sunk 300 hours into it, in addition to the other things, the other games that I'm doing, the other things that I have to do. I've been, playing it a lot. So it's a great game. There's a lot to say for it, but it's got some serious issues that I really feel need to be addressed sooner rather than later because there's a lot of wasting of your time in this game compared to, the first one even. And even the first one still kind of wasted your time quite a bit, but I feel like it's even worse here. And we're going to cover a lot of that here in this review. So like I said, the main theme we're going to be really focusing on is just these things that kind of waste your time. So first and foremost, just the map resets. When you die on a map, whether it's in the campaign or it's even worse in the end game when you're mapping, but especially in the campaign, when you die in the campaign, the map completely resets. You don't have the Fog of War doesn't reset, which thank God, but the monsters all respawn again, and you have to fight your way back all the way through all of that again. That's super frustrating because most of the time when you die, it's usually not a gear problem. I haven't really found gear being the main problem as to why I die, and most of the time it's just because you get swarmed by some stuff. You didn't mean to get swarmed by some stuff, and then they just burn you down, and then now you have to completely fight your way back through, half to 3/4 of a map because you got unlucky, or maybe you lost focus for half a second and some things swarmed on you that you shouldn't have let swarm on you. And requiring people to focus so hard 100% of the time is a little bit unreasonable as far as I'm concerned. But this resetting of all the monsters on the maps as the default setting is just kind of unreasonable. Making it an option where you can just reset the map if you want to, because you want to do that. I believe there's a way to do that. I'm not sure what it is, but I think there's a way to manually reset it yourself. But making it the mandatory default way that it works is just super frustrating because when you die, you're already irritated that you died. You're already irritated that now I have to run back to get back to where I was. But now, not only that, I have to fight my way back to where I was, and it just makes the entire process of getting through a map take way longer than it would if you just respawned back and had to run back. I personally would much rather just have a flat XP penalty for that and just be able to run back. I'd much rather that be the case because it's way less annoying to regain the experience points than to have to slog your way back through a crap ton of monsters to get back to wherever it was you were. So I think going back to the PoE 1 way of doing this, where you lose a certain amount of XP based off of where you are in the campaign or what level you are or whatever, I think that's a more fair and frankly respects your time a lot more than forcing you to have to go repeat content again. It's really annoying. Vendors specifically, I have a couple of vendor related items here. First and foremost, I don't know what algorithm they're using to generate gear from the vendors, but it seems like they go out of their way to make sure that everyone else's gear, every other class's gear is spawning in their system, and your stuff is like few and far between. And I don't understand that. It's super frustrating. It's great that you have access to other classes' gear, but realistically, how often are you going out? How often are you going out and grabbing some kind of gear that's completely opposite from what you're looking for? It's really annoying that that's kind of the way that works. I'm always like people always talk about, well, go to the vendor and check for upgrades. And it's like, well, I do. I go to the vendor every time I level up. And most of the time I look at it and like, well, this is all for a ranger. What am I going to do with this? Or I'm using a spellcaster class and I'm getting all freaking armor gear. And it's like, it's kind of hard to gear up when, you know, I don't have access to the kind of gear I need for my character. And more specifically, I feel like the vendors should have a lot more white gear in their inventory. I think they need to beef up the number of pieces of gear that show up in each of the vendors, and they need to make it so that it's mostly white gear and then a sprinkling of magic gear in, you know, just on the off chance that maybe something cool spawns in the inventory and you grab that instead. Because it's much... The intent is supposed to be that you are enchanting your own items to try to get the specific stats that you want. And when a piece of gear spawns with 2, 3, 4 different line items on it, that removes the possibility of you potentially getting something that you want to get on that piece of gear. So I really think that if they want white gear to be important, which is something I've heard that they were really trying to prioritize, I think making the vendors have mostly white gear is really going to make that stand out a lot more. And it's the same thing when we're going around and fighting things. Like most of the items that drop, it's all magic items. If you're really trying to find a specific slot of gear, like let's say, I'm sorry, I'm not in the right window. If I'm really trying to find, let's say I'm trying to find some boots because I want to see if maybe I can get an increase in my boot speed, right? Well, if the boots drop and it already has a prefix on it, well, then I know that piece of gear is completely useless to me because the next thing I'm going to get in it is going to be a suffix if it's not if it's not a rare item already. And then do I really want to waste one of my regal orbs on the small chance that it might end up giving me the movement speed I want? It might give me movement speed, but what if it's not an increase in my movement speed? You know, like I know I have a lot of this stuff now, but when you're just leveling through the campaign, you don't have this number of stuff. Like you're really struggling, and you don't want to waste your valuable currency trying to upgrade something. But it's much easier to, you know, get a white piece of gear and just you get a lot of these too. You get a lot of these basic currencies right here, and it's much less of a hit to your wallet to be like, all right, well, I can do 1 or 2 of these on a bunch of different items to see if maybe I can establish movement speed, and then once I find a boot that has the movement speed I want, and then I can regal it and see what other kind of cool stuff I can tack on top of that. But because you don't get enough white items, and most of the stuff that drop ends up having something in a slot that you don't want to be there, you end up just vendoring it because you're disenchanting it because you're like, well, this isn't, it's not worth the risk of me spending currency on this item. So we just really need to have a lot more white items showing up because it takes a lot longer to try to get the kind of gear that you want, and it's very clear that they designed this game around you need to have a certain level of gear and a certain quality of gear and a certain amount of gear in addition to your leveling and making sure that your passives and all that stuff are set up the right way. Your gear is a major check on whether you're able to progress through the game, and they've made it take an unreasonably long amount of time, especially because, you know, the trade system in this game, as I've said many times, is a piece of crap. End of story as far as I'm concerned. You can argue all you want. I think that forcing people to manually trade with each other in a game, especially in this day and age, is a massive waste of people's time. But again, they're not going to change that, at least as far as I'm aware, in the relatively near future. So we're stuck with that as it is. I'd much rather they just focus on making it so that I can make my own gear more reliably than forcing me to have to interact with that stupid trade system. But it's what we've got, and that's what you got to do. All right, so as far as ascendancies go, the entire approach to ascendancies in this game, it's such a waste of your time. It is such a massive, massive waste of your time. First and foremost, the honor system in the Trial of the Sekimas is just, it's super punishing to any play style that doesn't involve rolling around and shooting from a distance. I know they went through and kind of adjusted the honor drop with relation to how close you are, but to be perfectly honest with you, I think that punishing a play style that is just jump in and bash everybody to death is kind of ridiculous. I shouldn't have to, if I have a build that has a playstyle that is centered around jumping into a group of monsters and then bashing the crap out of them, you're going to take damage when you do that. It's going to happen. You're not going to be able to avoid it. And this honor system that makes it to where, you know, you have to be careful and avoid taking hits. I think whoever came out with this was probably thinking about like the Native American counting coup thing, where you just walk up and touch an enemy and that somehow gave you honor. I don't really understand that, but that's apparently something that was a big thing back in the, you know, the olden times in the North American continent. But you can't apply that kind of logic here. There are a multitude of different play styles. Some people are casters who are flinging things from far away. Some people are nimble and they're dodging around and doing some stuff. And those play styles tend to do pretty well because you're naturally trying to dodge and avoid taking damage anyway. But if you're a warrior playing a tanky, beefy thing where your play style is to, you know, leap into a group and then, you know, bone shatter a bunch of stuff, well, you have to get up close. You have to get into the middle of a group of people to be able to do the bone slam. And then I have some instant heals things, so that when I'm going through maps, when I kill things, my health goes back up. That's the way my character is built. And it's super frustrating that that particular play style is heavily punished, because if you take any kind of damage at all, it reduces your honor. I don't necessarily have a problem with the idea of an honor system per se, but it really needs to be based off of skill and not just one single metric of you took some damage. Because the ability, like, it's super like, we respect people. We respect boxers who were able to take a lot of punishment and still win the fight, right? There's a lot of honor in that. They still get the crap beat out of them, but we don't judge them for that. They were tough enough to slug it out and win the fight. Whoever came up with this honor system, I think they had a cool idea in the back of their head, but this was just implemented way, way wrong, and it really needs to be adjusted. It is super frustrating. I went all the way through the third level, the third floor of the Trial of the Sekimas, and got to the last boss, and I had 61 freaking honor left. There was nothing I could do. Oh, I deleted something. Yeah, I had 61 honor left, and there was absolutely nothing I could do, because as soon as the map started and that snake thing came out, it did a swoosh with its tail. I didn't even get a chance to dodge out of the way, and I was done. I wasn't dead, I just didn't have any more honor left, because I ran out of honor. I ran out of places to restore my honor, because, you know, you accrue damage over the course of time, and if you're not gaining enough, if you get bad afflictions that prevent you from getting sacred water to buy restoration honor, or you don't get enough shrine or enough of those little things that restore your honor along the way, what are you going to do? You're totally at the mercy of RNG. So it's not even your skill that does it. It's the fact that, you know, as you're just dying by slow attrition, death by 1,000 cuts, all that kind of stuff. So I think at least for now, I think they just need to remove the honor system from the trials. The trials themselves overall wouldn't be nearly, I would be much more interested in doing them if I didn't have to worry about the time I spent on them being completely wasted simply because of an arbitrary mechanic. Removing the honor system would make it so that at the very least, as long as you can survive to the end, you get your ascendancy points, and maybe the honor system could be for bonus rewards at the end. That's really the way that should work. But if I'm going to go into a trial, if I'm able to complete the trial, if I'm able to get to the end and survive it, I should get my ascendancy points. I completely disagree with this approach to the way that they're doing it. As far as the chaos trials go, it's too punishing the further you get in. It's not the first round of it's not too bad. The first 4, it's not too bad, because you don't have enough. There's not enough time for the random things that come in to pile up on top of each other enough to really make it, you know, super difficult to get through a boss or whatever it is that you're trying to get done. But once you start getting into like 6 and 7, there's just too many things happening at once for you to be able to have any reasonable way of progressing through that. I'm sure there's plenty of people who are able to do it. They have crazy DPS and they're able to just burn everything down fast enough, so fast that those things don't happen. But you know, most of us don't have those kinds of builds and aren't really trying to go after those kinds of builds. So making it to where, you know, middle level players can still get through all of these trials and get their ascendancy points is really important. So I think that maybe having, you know, they seem to have it set up into Like if you're doing 10 trials, they have 4 in the beginning, that's like one block, and then 5, 6, and 7 are another block, and then 8, 9, and 10 is another block. I think having one powerful negative effect or one powerful challenge per block, and then the other ones just being little minor annoyances would help kind of flatten that out a little bit, so that if you're doing 10 trials, you only really have 3 things that are really challenging you, and then the rest of the stuff is just little minor annoyances that just, you know, they're there and they matter, but they're not gonna like really get in your way. So because of these things that are just kind of getting in the way, every one of my characters, all 5 of the characters that I have right now, they only have 4 ascendancy points, because it's just not worth risking the time it's going to take to get through either of those ascendancy trials, only to, you know, have it just wasted at the last second. Especially on the trial of the Sekimas, it's super frustrating to, you know, spend 30, 45 minutes plus trying to get through those trials, only to have it all wasted at the last second, because not because I died, but because my honor ran out. And that's just, it's soul crushing, wasting that much time out of your day and then not getting anything for it at all. The biggest problem is you don't get anything for the time that you invested in it. It's just a complete waste, and I don't understand how anybody can look at that. You know, time is our most valuable resource that we have. It's the most valuable resource that anybody has. And trying to tell a player that, you know what, you're going to invest this time and it's an absolute gamble as to whether you're going to get anything out of this time that you wasted. I think that's kind of disrespectful, and developers should really take another look at this entire system here, because it's really frustrating. Now, as far as the end game goes, I have a fair bit of things to say about it. One time through the maps is just not enough. The original six attempts for each map, I think, was pretty reasonable. And here's why I say that. It's not that, you know, it's not a difficulty thing. It's not that, I understand the intent of, you know, they want to make it feel like you're taking a risk by going into a map, and I get that. But at the same time, if you're going to give us one attempt through the maps, then you need to drastically ramp up the drop rate for waystones. Because if you're going to make it so that if we only get a quarter of the way through the map and then we die for whatever reason, like I said, sometimes you get swarmed, sometimes you just get bad luck, sometimes something crappy just happens to you, you lose out on all of the drops for the rest of that map. And if you're relying on random drops for your waystones to come along, you're really screwing players over if they get unlucky about something. So either give us the 6 portal system back or drastically increase the drop rates for waystones so that we don't have to worry about running out if we have a bad streak of, oh crap, died again. I have pretty decent gear for all of my characters because I suffered my way through all of the trading and everything. The reality is that just some maps, there's a lot of stuff going on, and sometimes you get swarmed, and it just happens. And so there needs to be some accounting for that. And I don't think that you're already popping up 6 portals around the map device here, right? You're already popping up 6 portals around the map device here. Give us our 6 portals. Give us our 6 portals back. There's no reason for that. There's no reason for us for this to happen this way. We rely on going into maps to farm gear, to get waystones, to do all of those things. We need to be able to go into each and every map and have every opportunity to get waystones. So give us our 6 portals back, or just drastically increase the drop rate for waystones so that we don't need the 6 portals to sustain our maps. Now, the other big thing that's really frustrating me is there's a lot of times where I'm walking through a map and I'm killing a bunch of stuff, and then I realize later that I just walked right by a rare. That would be fine if rares weren't the thing that all of our maps need to finish them. Like, they're a requirement. You have to kill all of them to finish the map. They really need to add a function where the golden skulls that show up at the end when you've been in there for too long, they really need to have those show up whenever you're within a certain distance from the rare as you're walking by it. That way you don't end up bypassing something that you need to do to finish the map. And this is really important because it really makes you take a lot longer to complete a map when you bypass one of those, because of the next thing that we're going to talk about, and that is the fact that even though waypoints were added, most of the time they're added, they randomly spawn in the map in a way that just makes them completely useless. They're too few and far between, and they're almost always located in a way, at least in my experience, where it's almost faster to just run back to wherever it is you're trying to get to than to try to run off to whatever the nearest waypoint is, to jump over to the nearest waypoint to where you're trying to get to, and then run over to where you're trying to go. It's super frustrating. I think they need to come up with some kind of a system that makes the waypoints all kind of equidistant so that using them actually makes sense instead of just something that you ignore because it doesn't actually help you and speed up your time. They were intended to help make things faster and help you progress through the maps faster if you missed something, but they just don't, and so they need to do another pass through that to try to figure out how to make sure that that's working right. Now, the last thing I want to say is that I think that the new map system is absolutely amazing. One of the things that I didn't really like about the PoE1 mapping system is just that it was a checkbox. It was a checklist that you had to fill. This new mapping system makes you feel like you're on a journey. It makes you feel like you're covering ground. It makes you feel like you're on an adventure, which I think is a really awesome thing. I think it's the exact right direction that they needed to go when it came to the mapping system, because it makes the mapping feel more important. It makes it feel more substantial. It makes it feel like something worth doing. But the caveat to that is that because now I feel like I'm on this massive adventure covering a lot of ground, I don't want to have to grind through every square inch of every map and kill every monster in every map, because I'm more concerned with covering distance on the map now than I am with scrubbing clean every square inch in each individual map that I'm in. So this goes back to the whole waystone thing. I would much rather just get a crap ton of waystones so that I can do a crap ton of maps and just focus on clearing the map and then moving on to another one, so that I can enjoy that feeling of progressing through the overland map, and going through the individual maps themselves is just the fun part of it, right? You just go through, you clear out a bunch of monsters, have some fun, you finish the map, and then you go back, and then you're able to go back to the mainland map and see, all right, what's the next map I want to go to? The way it is now, I feel obligated to clear out every single monster because I'm not getting enough waystones to be able to continue my map journey, and that's super frustrating. So I really like the direction that they took, but they really need to refocus the way that things work while you're in a map area, so that you can really focus on the map part and less on the, a little bit less. I don't want to say less, but a little bit less on feeling like you absolutely have to uncover every nook and cranny of a map to be able to even progress in the map. So that's all I'm saying about that. So these are some of the big things that I've really been noticing lately. Obviously, it's not every little thing. It would take forever for me to make a video covering every tiny little thing that I find objectionable about the game. And obviously, there's a bunch of good stuff in the game. I'm not trying to say that this game sucks. It doesn't suck. But it does have some things that really waste your time, and I'm not the kind of person who has a lot of patience for things that waste my time. And this list of stuff here is just really some things I would love to see changed and adjusted in a way that makes dealing with things less annoying. So hopefully all of that made sense. Hopefully some of you guys agree with the things I put on the list here. Be sure to click the like button, subscribe to help us reach 10,000 subscribers. Join as a member for early access to videos, among other perks, or you can just leave YouTube's version of a tip with that thanks button. I also have PayPal and Patreon links in the description if you'd like to go that route. But that's going to go ahead and do it for today. So thanks for watching, and see you for the next one.